Okay, so we had gone through how to do the slice using the loc method, and I defined a new data frame, this AC underscore 15. If that's not clear, look at the previous video. So with this new data frame defined, actually I can just run the same old things we've been doing, which is this group by method. Here I'm grouping by date, and I'm gonna be interested in this. That's my date is my categorical. My quantity is this thing I'm interested in. And I'm going to do the sum method. So sum the quantity by date and plot this. And what we get is this plot of the total quantity of adult cola with 1.5 liter by month over the whole sample. And this is a kind of a first plot at a first brush at plotting. And we can see immediately, just interpretatively, you should look for patterns. And I see a couple of patterns here, actually. I mean, the first pattern I see is that it's cyclical. There's these cycles. That's very obvious. And it looks like maybe an upward, like throughout all these cycles, like it looks like there's somewhat of an upward trend, maybe. Looks like that's kind of maybe a little bit there. But one thing I want to go into, we're going to do a lot more plots. And one of the packages actually that we're going to use is better than this just simple plot method. We've got a really fancy plot package called matplotlib, and we loaded it in the very first cell. You can go back and look at that, and we called it PLT. That's how we define matplotlib. It's right up here. Import matplotlib as PLT. And so we have this. This is actually a much better package. So what I'm going to do actually to use this package, I'm going to show you how to use this because it's so much more flexible, is what I'm going to do is actually first I'm going to define the plot. So let's define a y variable. Think about this, this plot. We have our y-axis, we have our x-axis. So I'm just defining a new variable called y. Again, you can call it whatever you want. I'm just calling it y. And this is going to be the sum, right? The sum of the quantity by date. Remember our adult cola 1.5, that was our data frame that we sliced. So hopefully that makes sense as to what we're looking at here when I define y variable. Of course, I don't have to use this AC underscore 15. I could actually just do my whole method. This right here is what is defined as AC underscore 15. I could just type that whole thing and then continue on with my group by and the rest of it just with a dot and just kind of keep running with it just like that. And either way would just work. They're equivalent. Okay, that's kind of interesting to see. But then when I have my y variable defined, I'm going to use the matplotlib command, which is plt, and then dot call the plot method. And inside these parentheses, I'm going to have my x. I'm going to have my x actually is implied here because if you just look at if you just look at this actually, so if I were to just print this thing out, you can see actually why I don't need to define x. Sometimes you do need to define x, but here actually we don't need to. So I'm just going to not define y, but I'm just going to run the code that's equal to y, and just show you actually that it's got the date right next to it. So the date is actually there, and that's why I'm not defining x in my plot command. You can see it when I click on the syntax. Actually, it does have. This is the syntax plot. You can put in an x, or you can just plot y if it's defined as it is. And that's what I'm doing anyway. So it could be plot x comma y, but actually I'm just calling in y, and I'm going to label this line. I can label it whatever I want. I'll give it something logical. And this is the width of the line. The next parts actually are just details. I can add a title. I can do plot and do X label, a Y axis label, and then add a legend. And then after I do all these things, I'm gonna actually print the plot by doing this plot dot show method. And when I run all that, this is what I get: a much nicer looking plot with labels and everything. So that's the matplotlib method. It's very nice.